Hi folks, welcome to my channel. Today's story is not about treatment or diagnosis, but about what comes after, the part that people rarely talk about. And for many of us, that part is actually very hard and maybe even harder than the treatment. Everyone talks about fighting cancer, but no one talks about what to do and what that looks like after the fight is over. We're just supposed to go back to normal, but we don't even really know what normal is anymore. I just passed 3 years cancer free, and I'm so grateful for that. But I still don't think I've really had closure. Instead, it's like life after cancer becomes its own whole new story. Today, I want to talk about the part of cancer recovery that people don't talk about, the identity shifts, the emotions that surprise you, the fear of recurrence, the burnout, and the pressure to just bounce back. I won't be talking treatment details. What I'm talking about is the human side of healing. For context, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2022, and I had a double mastectomy and then spent months dealing with chemotherapy, radiation, and reconstruction surgeries. And then the treatment ended, and I was so excited to be cancer free. And that's where this story starts. I found that after the treatment, people expect joy, relief, and a clean return to normal. And you kind of expect, at least I did, I expected closure, a clear ending to the chaos. And some of that happens, but the deeper truth is that it's a lot more complicated than that. The reality is that there is no real end to the cancer journey. Your identity changes after cancer, and you don't really get a say in how. You don't really feel like you're the same person that you were before. The mental and physical and emotional changes are intense. My brain doesn't work the same way it did before I had cancer. I struggle with names far worse than I ever did, and I struggle with pulling up memories. I was so worried about my memory that I actually had a professional medical analysis done, only to learn that my memory is actually great and that I can recollect current events very well. But what I do have is called chemo fog, and chemo fog could last for a very long time or even forever. Sometimes friends mention memories of things that I did with them 10 years ago, and I really struggle to pull those up. It's like pulling a memory from the past is like swimming through jello, and I have to swim and push through this jello in order to find the memory at the bottom of it. It takes me asking questions or trying to, I remember that we did that thing, but then I can't form the details until I ask a couple more questions. And again, it's like swimming through the jello. And when I finally grasp it, I remember it. But accessing those memories almost feels like a chore. And it's just so interesting that that's what my brain does now. But now that I know that I can access those memories, but it just makes it a lot harder. After cancer, the fear of recurrence is real and very much almost constant at first. I didn't realize how bad it was until I got to my first 3 month scan. And I just had a new boss start that week. And I was so anxious that in my first meeting with my new boss, just babbled and I almost what I call word vomited in the meeting. And I made a really bad first impression. Fortunately, my boss was very understanding. And when I explained that I had a cancer scan that day, he told me not to worry about it. We moved on. But I was so embarrassed. And that anxiety created kind of that opportunity for a very embarrassing moment. I'm very lucky because we took very aggressive steps with my cancer treatment, with the double mastectomy and everything else. My chance of recurrence is considered to be very low. But I'm telling you, the anxiety doesn't stop. Every scan, every blood test, every appointment still brings that anxiety that what if the cancer reappears in some other area of my body? What if we don't find it? And that anxiety is really frustrating. I'm not saying that that fear sticks around forever, and it's definitely minimized every year that we've gone since being cancer free and not finding any signs of recurrence, but it never completely disappears. For me, I've had a really hard time with how much my body has changed after cancer. I When I look in the mirror, I see breasts that aren't mine. I see scars that shouldn't be there. And I'm still learning to accept this version of my body. I have pain on my left side where the radiation was focused, and that's never really gone away. The scars didn't heal the same because of that radiation. And what it did is the kind of pulls on the breast, causing a little bit of disfigurement, as well as just a low throbbing pain that's just never really goes away. I also have neuropathy in some of my toes that can be so bad on some days that I walk with a limp, while other days I don't even know that it's happening. The neuropathy comes and goes. Some days I limp, some days I do not. But every time it shows up, it is a reminder that I'm just not the same person physically. And then there's other things physically, things like sex drive that's never fully come back. I have fertility issues that have been exacerbated because of the chemotherapy. So every pain or every challenge, whether it's fertility or physical pain or irritation or discomfort or what I look like in the mirror, it reminds me of what cancer took from me and how my body will never physically be the same. There is a burnout that hits you after all the treatment is over that is kind of surprising. While in the treatment, survival mode kept me going. I was always had something to focus on, the next treatment, the next step, and how I was going to push forward. And people are so supportive and so understanding of anything that's going on at that time. But no one talks about how after treatment, that exhaustion just catches up with you and drops you. And people expect you that because the cancer is gone, that you should be back to normal. But even 3 years later, I honestly don't feel like I have the energy and stamina that I had prior to cancer. And it's really frustrating at times. The mental and emotional burnout was awful. It felt like I'd spent an entire year, and I know for many, they spend many years in this cancer identity. This is who I was. This is what I was dealing with. And it's not like I could hide it. I had no hair. I had no eyebrows. I looked sickly all the time. It was obvious I was a cancer patient. And now I had to redefine who I was again. My hair started growing back. I started to look more normal, but I was still struggling with pain, emotional burnout, and exhaustion that took much longer to heal than my hair did growing back out. It felt like people assumed that once the cancer was gone, that I was just going to bounce back. But the truth is, I didn't really feel the full emotional weight until everything was quiet and I was no longer so focused on treatment and survival. My career was impacted after cancer, even if people didn't really see it. My priorities changed. I wanted to work for a company that valued what I'd been through and not judged me for it. I had a colleague at one of the places I worked that told me that my vulnerability, my cancer, everything I'd been through was a weakness, and that sharing my struggles and what I'd been through meant that I wasn't strong enough. I disagree. Tears are not a weakness. Vulnerability is not a weakness. Sharing your story is not a weakness. Living through cancer and pushing through and still showing up, that is 100% a strength. And if someone sees what you've been through or how you're handling it as a flaw, that says more about them than it does about you or it does about me. I know that my cancer journey will never fully end. At around the 2 year mark, I realized that what I had been through no longer controlled my life. The pain, the neuropathy, the frustration, they was still there, but they were manageable and I had accepted it. And compared to what others had lost in their own journeys, I continue to feel exceptionally grateful. Healing doesn't look like back to normal, or at least not to pre cancer normal. It's slow, it's complex, and much more frustrating than I ever would have expected. It requires redefining what your new normal is and not expecting yourself to go back to pre-cancer normal, even if you're not entirely happy with your new normal. I also think that healing involves defining what's important to you. I find that now I have a lot less tolerance for mistreatment, for discrimination than I used to have. I have a lot more clarity on what's important to me, what matters in my life, and I have a lot more motivation to follow my passions, like building this channel than I had before that involved just doing what people expected me to do. I believe that celebrating yearly milestones is healthy and positive. It's a way to remind me of everything I've gone through, everything I've survived, and how I've pushed forward through all that diversity and trial along the way. It's a way to remember that no matter what, and no matter what anyone else thinks, that I am strong and that cancer is just one more step on this journey that we call life. If you're in this stage or you're supporting someone who is, I just want you to remember that healing isn't linear, it isn't quick. Life is still life after cancer. It is still emotional and messy and beautiful and confusing and fun, but you get to rebuild it at your own pace and the way that you want it to be rebuilt. Thanks for being here. This is part of wrapping up the cancer journey chapter of my life so that I can tell the next part of my story, the part that involves rebuilding, identity, and life beyond survival. Thanks for spending your time with me. I'm Janae Cherie, and I hope that my story helps you to tell yours. If my work here adds value to your healing journey, liking or subscribing helps this message reach more people who need it.